Type 1 in the comments if you loved Dream of Jeannie. Type 0 if you preferred Bewitched. If you comment 1, then stay tuned, because today we're diving into the scene that many say ruined the show's entire legacy, and why even Barbara Eden admitted it was a mistake. It was the moment fans never expected. One scene that changed the tone, the magic, and the chemistry forever. The narrative of Enchanting Jeannie begins not with a cloud of smoke from a bottle of liquor, but rather with a strange inspiration derived from the modest success of a film that few people remember now. The fantasy, comedy, The Brass Bottle, was seen in 1964 by Sidney Sheldon, a successful playwright and novelist recognized for his complex writing and narrative ambition. In this video, Tony Randall frees a powerful male bottle spirit played by Beryl Ives from an old bottle. Barbara Eden played Randall's girlfriend on film. Even though the film was only moderately recorded, Sheldon maintained the idea in mind. He saw an opportunity in it not only for laughter but for something more playful, sensuous, and long-lasting. Instead of duplicating the brass bottle's formula, Sheldon flipped the genders. What if instead of a male soul in a masculine planet, the magical entity was a beautiful woman? Charming, magical, and a human guy who struggles to accept her existence. The guy should of course represent rationality, discipline, and control. In the 1960s, who could be better equipped for spaceflight than an American astronaut? Sheldon had discovered his formula. A romantic fantasy sitcom based on the ludicrous but with daily issues about gender roles, power, and constraint. Charming Jeannie was always intended to compete with ABC's surprise success, In Love with a Witch, which premiered in 1964. In Love with a Witch followed a modern witch who attempted to live as a suburban housewife. An idea that, after a decade of altering gender norms, remained popular among American audiences. The NBC executives were anxious for an equal hit but hesitated when Sheldon proposed his plan. A 2,000-year-old bottle spirit woman falls in love with an astronaut. That seemed deceptive and even unsafe. The broadcaster declined to release the entire budget. They persisted on shooting the first season in black and white due to cost despite the growing popularity and availability of color television. Sheldon continued with his strategy. He auditioned a number of females for the starring part of Jeannie, but they were all either too seductive, too pale, or unconvincing. Ironically, he first banned blondes out of fear of being compared to Samantha Stevens in Love with a Witch, portrayed by Elizabeth Montgomery. However, as Barbara Eden entered the preliminary room, things began to unravel. She was beautiful, humorous, and seemed empathetic. Most importantly, she had already performed a comparable character in The Brass Bottle. Sheldon regarded Eden as a great combination of innocence and charm. She was almost immediately employed. The creators cast Larry Hagman, a Texas-born actor, known for theatrical roles and guest appearances in anthology programs as Major, Anthony Tony, and Nelson. Hagman, a rigid, immaculate astronaut, was the perfect foil to Eden's effervescent and impetuous personality. His dynamics, in which he continuously attempted to preserve order while also confounding people, generated a weird tension that formed the series' core. The first episode aired on NBC on September 18, 1965. Enchanted Jeannie quickly became a success. The audience was captivated by the foreign premise, Eden's humorous timing, and the whimsical, somewhat sensual tone that deftly avoided the censorship rules of the period. The number of views increased dramatically. During its first run, the series occasionally came in second place, trailing only the Western powerhouse Bonanza. Romance, moderation, and the power of what if. Enchanted Jeannie managed to strike a balance in the conservative atmosphere of 1960s American television, when every skirt was measured and every hint to network control was vetted. The sitcom was full of imagination, but it also played like a long, drawn-out romantic farce, pushing the boundaries of sexual tension but never breaking them. The mysterious, seductive connection between Major Tony Nelson and his bottle-bonded Jeannie was at the core. Jeannie may have desired to be 2,000 years old, but he was purposefully presented as an emotionally vulnerable character akin to an adolescent falling in love for the first time. That wasn't a coincidence. Sidney Sheldon, a showman and strategist, understood the importance of contrast. Jeannie's costume, a tight, pink-haired suit with translucent fabric and a tight crotch, exceeded the limits of what was acceptable at the time of the main presentation. But her manners, vocabulary, and devotion to Tony were imbued with a childlike purity that heightened the potential controversy. Barbara Eden's portrayal hit the mark precisely. She gave Janie a shock, but never malice. Sensuality, but never seduction. Tony Nelson, played by Larry Hagman, represented the inner notion of the American man, disciplined, just, and a little overwhelmed by the turmoil that Jeannie brought into his life. He resided in a modest bungalow near Cocoa Beach, which served as a symbol of Florida's growing space industry. He was completely devoted to his work as an astronaut, and he spent the majority of his time concealing Jeannie's existence from his superiors. And yet, week after week, the audience witnessed how he refused the approaches of a lady who idolized him and actually fulfilled every whim of his, and she addressed him as Master. This relationship was at once bizarre, provocative, and powerfully indicative of the prevailing gender conventions. Critics and scholars later viewed the show's theme as a veiled commentary on masculine fantasies and masculinity during the Cold War. However, Sheldon and his authors did not want to critique gender politics. They wanted to create 25 minutes of beautiful escape that invariably ended with Tony Jeannie's well-intended havoc needing to be brought back under control. Two important supporting personalities contributed to the problem. Dr. Alfred Bellows, the always inquisitive NASA psychiatrist who wanted to know Tony's secret, and Major Roger Healy, Tony's greatest friend and confidant, who either flirted with Jeannie or took advantage of her abilities. These two individuals not only generated weird situations, but they also served as built-in hurdles, causing the authors to pause. In numerous instances, Jeannie's magic unexpectedly ruined a vital NASA test or made Tony look mentally ill, jeopardizing his profession, friendships, and even his freedom. Despite this, Jeannie and Tony's romantic tension was never addressed. And that was exactly the goal. Every glance, every odd touch, every moment of envy or emotional fragility added to the uncertainty of whether or not they would. The tragic undercurrent between the humor and slapstick emotionally disconnected the audience from the jokes and fun. Sidney Sheldon recognized that if Jeannie and Tony went beyond flirtatiousness, if Tony succumbed to his feelings or behaved accordingly, the series' core engine would lose control. This was the golden rule of romantic comedy in the 1960s. Unresolved attraction was more fascinating than successful love. Series such as The Dick Van Dyke Show and In Love with a Witch provided their main characters solid marriages but charming. Jeannie lived for the thrill of the unknown, the decision that altered everything. When Charming Jeannie began Season 5 in the fall of 1969, the first fine cracks showed. Although the series had a devoted fan base, it was no longer the cultural powerhouse it once was. The numbers began to fall gradually but significantly, and those in authority at NBC got concerned. In an industry concerned with innovation, and show their answer was both hip and foolish. Following years of love courting and magic performances, Jeannie and Tony should finally marry. The concept involved neither character development nor rational action. It originated from the marketing department. NBC was feverishly seeking to rekindle interest and raise quotas during the crucial sweeps phase. The rationale was straightforward. If viewers had been wondering for 4 years if the main characters would marry a wedding, would have to boost the quotas. To make the event more thrilling, the broadcaster launched an extensive public relations effort. Let's explore how this single creative choice transformed the show and ended up cutting its run short. The wedding episode between Major Tony Nelson and Jeannie became a game-changer for this beloved sitcom. Many TV shows build toward romantic endings, but this union changed everything that made I Dream of Jeannie a hit for 4 seasons. Barbara Eden, who played the mischievous bottle-dwelling Jeannie brilliantly, had serious doubts about the wedding storyline right from the start. The magic was gone, Eden said in later interviews about the show's dramatic change. She knew the show's main appeal, the forbidden romance between a mortal and a magical being, would disappear once they got married. Eden wasn't the only one who felt this way. She knew that Jeannie and Tony's cat-and-mouse game was the show's comedic heart. The show worked perfectly because Jeannie tried to win Tony's heart while he tried to keep things professional. This situation frustrated Eden even more because she had seen it before. "I had already done that show as Bewitched," she said about her guest role on the rival magical sitcom. She could see both shows thrived on the same tension magical beings struggling with their mortal partners. Taking that away would strip the show's identity. Jeannie and Tony's marriage made the show's premise fall apart. Before the wedding, the show ran on pure tension. Tony's career could crash if anyone found out about Jeannie. Her magical pranks always risked exposing her existence. Their romantic tension drove countless stories. Marriage wiped out these elements overnight. Tony didn't need to hide Jeannie anymore, though the show couldn't decide about this plot point. The will-they-won't-they spark that powered 4 seasons of stories was gone. The marriage turned Jeannie from a free-spirited magical being into something ordinary, just a housewife with powers. Writers now had fewer story options. Instead of Jeannie causing chaos to get Tony's attention, episodes focused on magical versions of household arguments far from the show's roots. The show's energy changed right after the wedding episode, and viewers noticed. Loyal fans didn't like seeing their favorite characters stuck in boring situations after years of magical adventures and romantic tension. Many thought the marriage was just a desperate ratings grab rather than a natural story choice. NBC's fan mail during Season 5 often mentioned the wedding as the moment things went wrong. Viewer numbers dropped sharply, and executives blamed it on the show's new direction. People had tuned in to watch Jeannie try to win Tony's heart, not to see their married life. The speed of the fan reaction stands out. While most shows slowly lose viewers, I Dream of Jeannie saw numbers drop right after the wedding. This quick response proved Barbara Eden's worries were right all along. Today, fan discussions still point to the wedding as the moment the show lost its spark, quite literally. TV historians now use I Dream of Jeannie to show how changing a show's core idea can make it fail fast. A major power struggle erupted behind the scenes of I Dream of Jeannie as the show entered its 5th season. The cast and creative team strongly opposed the marriage storyline. Their concerns didn't matter to the network executives. Show creator Sidney Sheldon warned NBC executives about what it all means if Tony and Jeannie got married. "I tried to explain," Sheldon later told the Archive of American Television, that what kept the show going was the sexual tension between the characters, and that when they were married, that sexual tension would be gone. The marriage episode ended up being filmed at Cape Kennedy with many Air Force officials present. Whatever Sheldon did to make the script engaging, he later admitted that, with their marriage, the relationship had changed and much of the fun went out of the show. Larry Hagman, Major Tony Nelson's actor, strongly fought against the marriage storyline from day one. He knew the wedding would damage the show's core appeal. Hagman warned studio executives that having his character marry Jeannie would take some of the magic out of the show. His prediction came true. Ratings dropped sharply after the wedding episode aired. The network decided to cancel the series and move it to syndication. Hagman understood the character dynamics that made the show successful for 4 seasons. The cat-and-mouse relationship between Tony and Jeannie drove the series forward. The show lost its central conflict once they got married. Hagman's unhappiness with the marriage plot created more tension on set. His frustration with the show's direction made existing production problems worse during the final season. NBC's head of programming, Mort Werner, pushed the decision to marry Tony and Jeannie. The show finished its 4th season without renewal confirmation. Werner gave Sheldon a clear choice: get a 5th season by having the characters marry. Network executives alone pushed this idea. The production team hated it. Barbara Eden said no. Larry Hagman knew the show wouldn't survive. Bill Daly, Roger Healy thought it changed everything. All the same, NBC stood firm no marriage meant no 5th season. The wedding mandate showed the network's desperation to boost falling viewer numbers. I Dream of Jeannie never dominated ratings. It missed the top 30 shows in 3 of its 5 seasons. The show peaked at 26th place, The network hoped the wedding would spark new interest in their struggling series. The wedding episode got better ratings, but the season's numbers tanked afterward. Sheldon blamed Werner directly in his 2006 memoir, Mort Werner had taken a hit show and destroyed it. Daly and Sheldon both said the network's marriage ultimatum killed the show. I Dream of Jeannie's story became a warning for TV producers. Network meddling in creative choices can speed up a show's end instead of saving it. Barbara Eden's iconic character's transformation ranks as one of TV's biggest creative mistakes. Her character started as a powerful, unpredictable magical being with her own agenda. The wedding episode changed everything about Jeannie's appeal and the show's core premise. Jeannie was a fascinating paradox before the marriage storyline. She balanced being powerful, yet vulnerable, independent, yet devoted. Her tremendous magical abilities created the perfect comedy setup. A military astronaut trying to keep order while living with an unpredictable Jeannie who could reshape reality with just a blink. The pre-marriage, Jeannie captivated viewers because of her mystique. She stayed true to herself while being devoted to Tony and often went against his direct orders. This stubborn independence drove many plot lines and proved she was more than Tony's magical sidekick. The wedding destroyed this delicate character balance. The writers started showing Jeannie as just another 1960s sitcom wife. Her magical powers, once key to who she was, became just another way to do housework or fix home problems. These changes showed up everywhere. Jeannie's wardrobe grew beyond her iconic costume to include typical housewife clothes. She talked more about household stuff instead of magical adventures. The show focused on her helping Tony's career rather than causing chaos in it. She lost her independence as stories made her Tony's wife, first magical being second. These changes went against everything that made the character exciting for 4 seasons. TV historian Tim Brooks said it best. Once Jeannie married Tony, she essentially became Samantha from Bewitched, a magical housewife trying to please her husband. No wonder Barbara Eden fought so hard against the marriage storyline. The marriage completely changed Jeannie's place in the show's story. She played both hero and troublemaker through the first 4 seasons. She created problems and helped solve them too. Eden's comedic talents shone through this dual role and kept viewers guessing about Jeannie's next move. Married Jeannie became nowhere near as interesting or complex. She stopped challenging Tony's authority or following her whims. Instead, she just supported her husband's goals and used magic to fix household problems. Eden's performance opportunities took a hit from these changes. She used to play Jeannie with amazing depth, mixing childlike wonder, ancient wisdom, mischievous humor, and real emotion. The wedding scripts stripped away these layers and left her as Tony's wife with magical powers. This creative choice sent a pretty sad message about gender roles in the late 1960s. Early season Jeannie showed viewers a powerful female character who stayed true to herself despite her love for Tony. Mrs. Nelson lost that independence when stories started following typical wife supports husband patterns. Strong female TV characters often lose what makes them special after getting married. The writers accidentally killed the magic by taking away Tony and Jeannie's forbidden relationship, the very thing that made her character so fascinating. The ratings dropped and the show got canceled after season 5. Viewers missed the mysterious, unpredictable Jeannie they'd grown to love. I Dream of Jeannie had lost its magic touch that kept it running successfully for 4 seasons. Major Anthony Nelson's character took the biggest hit from the poorly planned marriage storyline. The astronaut's trip from reluctant master to husband in I Dream of Jeannie changed both his character and the show's driving force completely. Tony Nelson's character thrived on conflict and contradiction during the first 4 seasons. His attention was drawn to Jeannie, yet he managed to keep professional boundaries. Larry Hagman found rich material to explore this internal struggle as an actor. His character balanced career dreams against growing feelings for Jeannie. This created perfect comedy setups as he tried to hide her from his NASA colleagues. The complex character quickly turned into a one-dimensional husband after the wedding bells rang. The driven astronaut who wrestled with the moral implications of owning a genie became just another 1960s sitcom husband dealing with magical household problems. His role changed from resisting Jeannie's advances to just reacting to her magical mishaps at home. These changes showed up in several ways. Tony didn't need to hide Jeannie anymore, though the show wasn't consistent about this. Household stories replaced his career ambitions. The moral complexity that made him interesting disappeared. Hagman had less chance to show his comedy skills. The marriage killed what made Tony fascinating: his resistance to Jeannie's charms. Tony stood for reason and restraint against Jeannie's magical chaos before the wedding. He ended up as just a straight man for basic magical mishaps afterward. Hagman's growing frustration with his role made sense in these circumstances. The actor who loved the character's internal battles at first now played a much simpler version of Major Nelson. Tony Nelson's story purpose became unclear after the wedding beyond the character problems. The show's tension centered on whether Tony would lose his NASA job if someone found out about Jeannie. This career risk created real stakes that made Tony's secrecy efforts matter. The marriage killed these stakes. The basic question changed from, will Tony's career be ruined, to, how will Tony handle this week's magical domestic situation, nowhere near as gripping a hook even when the show tried to keep the secrecy angle going. Tony lost his main motivation protecting his career from Jeannie's magical mischief. Without this drive, his actions seemed random or just reactive. The scripts pushed Tony into more contrived situations just to create conflict where natural tension had vanished. Tony Nelson became extra baggage in the story. The character existed to oppose Jeannie's magical nature originally. His purpose became unclear once that opposition disappeared through marriage. Writers struggled to find meaningful conflicts, often using increasingly wild scenarios to create fake tension. The show's ratings dropped because of this redundancy. Viewers who cared about Tony's character journey found nothing interesting in the 5th season. The astronaut who once had to guide himself between professional duties and his feelings for Jeannie became just another sitcom husband handling magical household problems. I Dream of Jeannie worked because people cared what happened to Tony Nelson. The audience quickly lost interest when his character lost direction after the wedding, proof of how badly the marriage storyline broke the show's original concept. The direct effect of Tony and Jeannie's wedding showed up right away in the Nielsen ratings. After the wedding episode aired on December 2, 1969, viewers started tuning out in large numbers. This ended up sealing the fate of what had been a reliable performer for NBC. The ratings data showed how the wedding episode hurt the show. The show reached its peak during the 4th season, ranking 26th place. However, I Dream of Jeannie saw a sharp ratings decline in its 5th season. The show dropped completely out of TV's top 30 programs, which meant a huge loss of viewers from the previous year. The ratings didn't drop slowly. They fell right after the wedding storyline aired. Historian Tim Brooks noted, historians point to the dwindling ratings in I Dream of Jeannie Season 5, which not so accidentally coincided with Tony putting a ring on it and marrying Jeannie in episode 124, The Wedding. The wedding episode itself got high ratings as a one-off broadcast. This showed that while people wanted to see the wedding, they quickly lost interest in the show's new direction afterward. The ratings created an odd situation. I Dream of Jeannie had never been a ratings powerhouse during its original run. All but one of these seasons didn't rank in the top 30 shows. Yet the show found amazing success in syndication. Contemporary reports showed the show became a hit in syndication with daily airings. Fans stayed engaged, sending 63,000 letters each week for one contest. The fan mail volume was about 53 times greater than the 1-200 Nielsen homes that determined ratings. This gap between Nielsen numbers and actual viewer interest led many to question whether the network ratings truly showed the show's popularity. NBC quickly canceled I Dream of Jeannie after the 5th season ratings crash. The decision came so suddenly that even the show's star didn't know. Larry Hagman found out about the cancellation at the studio gate. He remembered, "I drove down there and went through the gate. He said, "Mr. Hagman, can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just going to check in my dressing room." And he said, "You haven't heard." And I said, "No, I haven't heard what?" And he says, "The show's been canceled." Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman both blamed the wedding storyline for the cancellation. Eden said clearly on a 2015 Today Show appearance, "It just ruined the show. Because Jeannie wasn't human. I think it broke credibility." Hagman agreed, saying, "I knew that once they got us married it wasn't going to work," and the ratings had dropped steadily since then. Series creator Sidney Sheldon pointed to NBC executive Mort Werner, writing that Mort Werner had taken a hit show and destroyed it. Werner had pushed for the marriage storyline to boost ratings, but his decision actually sped up the show's end. The show aired 15 more episodes after the wedding in the 5th season, but NBC had made up its mind. I Dream of Jeannie aired its final episode in May 1970, ending with 139 episodes across 5 seasons. The I Dream of Jeannie wedding storyline created unprecedented tension behind the cameras. The production environment had already shown cracks, and things got worse faster as frustrations mounted among cast and crew members. Larry Hagman's unhappiness with the show started well before the wedding episode. Broadway star Mary Martin's son had deep insecurities about his own fame and resented not being the true star of the show, creator Sidney Sheldon noted. His frustrations showed up as increasingly unstable behavior. Things got worse after Hagman quit smoking and stopped taking Bontril, an amphetamine he'd used for 5 years to control his weight. "I had a breakdown. I was crying and vomiting all at the same time. Even the wax from my ears was coming out. I was exploding," Hagman later recalled. His mental state led to several shocking events. He threw up all over the set after disliking a script. During Sammy Davis Jr.'s guest appearance, Hagman reportedly opened his mouth and let loose a long, thick string of drool. The whole ordeal with the air conditioner stands out. Hagman attacked it with a fireman's axe and accidentally cut power to the entire soundstage. Barbara Eden saw her co-star as like a very talented troubled child whose tantrums sometimes got the better of his self-control. The crew sometimes fought back against Hagman's behavior. They once put salt instead of sugar in his tea and laughed hard when he spat the tea out in disgust. The wedding storyline made existing problems worse. NBC's marriage plot mandate left Hagman completely hopeless. "I started looking for a new job right away," he admitted, knowing the storyline would end the ballgame. The final season saw Hagman, who flatly refused to talk to me or anyone else, Eden revealed in her 2012 memoir. His withdrawal made work almost impossible for everyone involved. NBC executives thought about replacing Hagman with actor Darren McGavin. Barbara Eden stepped in to defend her difficult co-star. "I think it would be foolish to switch him in the middle of the show," she told network executives. Hagman later thanked Eden, saying, "He thanked me for saving his house." A therapist stayed on set constantly after Hagman's breakdown. The therapist's unusual advice suggested that Hagman relax by smoking pot and drinking champagne. Hagman then started every day at the studio by drinking vast quantities of champagne, and in between scenes he sequestered himself in his dressing room, smoking pot and drinking yet more. The growing chaos on set helped end the show early. NBC's wedding mandate had already shaken the creative foundation, and Hagman's unpredictable behavior created the perfect storm that ended up sealing I Dream of Jeannie's fate. TV executives still talk about the disastrous I Dream of Jeannie wedding years after it aired. This episode marks a defining moment in sitcom history, not because it succeeded, but because it showed how changing a show's basic formula can kill it quickly. Many successful shows during TV's golden age faced the relationship resolution challenge. I Dream of Jeannie stands out as the perfect example of what can go wrong. Writers today study this episode as a classic case of jumping the shark, that moment when a hit show makes a desperate creative choice and starts its downward spiral. This wedding episode's failure shaped TV development for years. Networks became scared to let popular characters marry mid-series after watching I Dream of Jeannie's post-wedding downfall. This fear stuck around well into the 1980s and beyond. Writers who suggested relationship resolutions for beloved characters soon faced the Jeannie scenario question. The episode became more than just a bad creative choice. It turned into a warning sign that everyone in the industry recognized. Bewitched. The main rival to I Dream of Jeannie took a different path with its magical storyline. Samantha and Darren started the show already married, which made a huge difference. This choice let the show stay true to its concept throughout its run. Both shows featured magical women and mortal men, but Bewitched kept viewers interested differently. Samantha's struggle between her promise not to use magic and her actual use of it created ongoing conflict. The show didn't need relationship drama to stay interesting. This highlights the main difference. Bewitched built its story around a marriage that already existed. I Dream of Jeannie relied on romantic tension that disappeared after the wedding. This explains why Bewitched entertained audiences for 8 seasons, while I Dream of Jeannie fizzled after its 5th. These different outcomes made the I Dream of Jeannie wedding episode a classic example of what not to do in TV writing rooms for generations. So what do you think? Should Jeannie and Major Nelson have stayed apart forever? Comment 1 if you think the wedding was a huge mistake. Comment 0 if you actually liked seeing them together. Hit like if I Dream of Jeannie was part of your childhood. Subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories of classic TV. Because sometimes, one scene can undo 5 years of television magic.